Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January meeting of Community Board 10. It's nice to see you. And this might be the best day of the week, maybe till Friday. And let's hope we're as lucky for whatever is coming this week as we were the prior week. We'd like to begin the evening with the honor of the pledge. And the honor of the pledge tonight is Assistant Chief Brian Conroy. Thank you very much for joining us. He's the commanding officer of Borough Patrol Brooklyn South. He has 37 years of experience with the NYPD. He is excited about his new assignment and the opportunity to continue building strong relationships and trust between the community and police officers as we all work together to keep our neighborhoods safe. Prior to his assignment as the borough commander, he was the commanding officer for the School Safety Division for 7 years. That gave him the responsibility for the safety and security of the city's 1.1 million public school students. During his time at the School Safety Division, the division worked very closely with the Department of Ed, elected officials, parents, and advocacy groups to build positive relationships between students, school safety officers, and police officers. New training programs were developed for problem solving and de-escalating techniques. Agents were able to work closely with school principals to more effectively resolve school-related issues. As a result of the new initiatives, there was a significant decline in enforcement activity within the city schools, public schools, while crime in the schools also declined to historic lows. Assistant Chief Conroy's prior assignments included being the executive officer of Patrol Borough Manhattan South and the commanding officer of the Vice Enforcement Division, Midtown South Precinct, 9th Precinct, and the 7th Precinct. His prior assignments within the NYPD have prepared him well for this new assignment. He holds a Master's of Public Administration degree from Marist College and a degree of Bachelor of Science in Public Administration from the City University. He grew up in College Point, Queens, and attended high school at Monsignor Scanlon High School in the Bronx. He currently resides in Nassau County and is married to his wife, Linda, for over 30 years, and they have 2 children. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Would you like to say a word?
Well, good evening. Josephine Doris, thank you very much for the invitation to be here tonight. I'm proud to have led the Pledge of Allegiance of Honor, and the bio thing kind of said it all about me. I wasn't expecting that, but I am really excited to be here. This is what I like to do, being part of patrol, because I think that's where it's at. That's where police officers, detectives get to work directly with the community and solve problems, right, and keep neighborhoods safe. So this is what I aspire to get back to. Here I am. This is a tremendous borough. It's the most diverse borough within the city, and we've had some tremendous success. So I got here about somewhere in the middle of August. I've met so many people here and got so welcomed here that it's been pretty amazing. Statistically, I can tell you we had a tremendous year in 2018. With the decrease in crime, we actually led the whole city in the decrease in crime within the city. So we did tremendous. Now we're off to a good start this year. So that. And the credit to that goes to the police officers, detectives that are out there working every day with members of the community. It's them working together that solves problems, keeps neighborhoods safe, and certainly organizations like yourself bringing people together where we can talk about issues. And this is where it's at. This is why I'm so happy to see so many people here today, and very proud to have been invited to be here today. And this is what it's about. This is about police officers working together with the community. You know, we're fully a neighborhood policing borough. Every one of our commands is neighborhood policing with NCOs and neighborhood you know, all the good stuff that helps us work together with the community. We always have. This is just a tool for us making better. So every police officer, all our neighbor coordination, they have their emails and their cell phones that you can have and contact them. And that's how it works. You tell us what's going on out there. We can't be everywhere. So you telling us what's going on out there really helps us do our job. And we feel a sense of satisfaction when we can actually help people and see the results together. So thank you very much for having me here tonight. Look forward to continue working with you for many years to come. Thank you very much. Yep. Your captain here, the 6A precinct was down 10%, which is tremendous. It's like doing a tremendous job. I see his picture on the paper. He knows it's the officers who work with him that really out there really deserve the credit for that. I wish we could have got a whole precinct picture on there, but he certainly represents them. Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Okay, good evening. Chief, once again, thank you for coming out here tonight. It's a pleasure to have you. Happy New Year, everyone. It's a great turnout for a really cold night, so that's great. So listen, we finished down 10% for the year. It was a great job by the community and by the cops. But now it's 2019, so now let's focus on what we have now. Right now, we're down 12.5% in the current 28-day period, so we're using that momentum, so we're heading in the right direction. But we are seeing some things, all right? We're spiking in car break-ins, package thefts, and mailbox phishing. Mailbox phishing, if you're not familiar with that term, you mail a check, a bill in the mail, and the perpetrator fishes, they come up with these devices, sometimes a mouse trap or a glue trap. However they do it, they put it in there, and they manage to get your mail out of the mailbox, and then they'll forge your checks. All right, it's a citywide problem. When we have it, we analyze it. I send the NCO officers out there to see maybe we could catch video. We ask the person, when did you mail the check? If it's not too far in the past, maybe we could catch something. But we are in touch with the post office and the postal police. And what they are doing on some of these mailboxes is they're retrofitting them so that it's no longer that door that you open. It's now just a small little slot, and hopefully that'll help. But these are crimes where you could help us. Car break-ins, you could help us by not leaving stuff in the car. Sometimes the person doing this, they'll look. If the valuables in the car or a bag in the car, they're going to break your car window, as opposed to if they look and they see nothing, they may leave that car alone. Mailbox phishing. There are ways now you could pay online. I prefer to do it that way. I know some people won't let go of writing checks, but whatever. The other thing is you could do with mailbox phishing is mail the check during the week, during business hours, when they collect the mail. Don't mail your check on Saturday, and then it's going to sit in there until Monday morning, all right? And then package theft, if you're expecting packages, maybe you could leave it with a neighbor or instruct them to leave it with a neighbor or a P.O. box or something of that nature. These aren't violent crimes, but again, they're crimes that you could help us, take care of. And I do send my people out there. The NCOs are out there. I have plainclothes units looking for guys. We're looking at guys who we've arrested in the past for these kind of crimes, and we're seeing what they're up to. All right, collisions. We are down 21% so far in 2019 in collisions, despite the well-reported day, January 14th. We had 17 collisions. The 6A precinct heard the concerns. We're well aware of what's going on. I've been in contact with Councilman Brannan's office, and we're Community Board 10 here. And we're working on initiatives to increase the enforcement on reckless driving and distracted driving. All right. Finally, the cold weather is upon us. Check on your neighbors, especially the elderly. Call 311 if you see homeless on the street. Okay, we'll show up. We'll interview that person. Make sure we'll offer them services. Make sure they're of sound mind in case they decide not to accept the services. You know, because now in the cold weather, we have to make sure that they don't freeze. Okay, that's all I have. Does anyone have any concerns that they want to bring up or questions?
The mailbox phishing, it happens inside the mail, the post office or outside?
No, we're talking about the mailboxes that are on the street corners. Yeah, regular mailbox. Yeah.
But not the one in front of our house, I mean, where they put the mail.
No, these are like the corner ones.
You know the blue mailbox in the corner? Right.
These are postal boxes, not the personal boxes.
Right.
I want to thank you for meeting with Josephine about our concerns about the increase in accidents. We are going to be analyzing the data, and we have a street safety subcommittee. Good thing I know this. And we would like to be meeting with your officers at some point to go over that.
Okay, anytime. Just let us know. Thanks. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
I think all the electors signed in. I think all the electors gave sheets. So, but I'll do the list anyway. Okay. Yeah, let me do. And I would like to welcome Community Affair Officer Ira Jablonski, Tommy Nihil, Fu Tran, and Michelle Tsakas. Thank you very much for coming. And we have, and we hope to see more of you. Cleo Markman, representing Congressman Max Rose, Evan Weinberg, Communications Director for State Senator Andrew Gennardis, Victoria Mazzola, representing Assemblymember Abadi, Sophia Quintanar, representing Matilda Fontes, Michael Sheldon, representing Councilman Brannan, Nick Chamberas, representing Nicole Maliatakis, Colonel Ziznis, representing the Fort Hamilton Army Base, Kathy San Pietro, representing the former Army Base, and Callie Sawyer, representing Felix Ortiz. Ari Kagan from the Controller's Office, Captain Conwell, Detective Kirshner, and Jessica Callow from the Borough President's Office. Thank you all for being here tonight. And I would like to begin the meeting by asking for an adoption of the agenda. Jessica, second. Larry Stelter. Adoption of the minutes. Thank you very much, Dr. Amawi and Michael. Thank you. And now for the public session, thank you all for signing up. We have 9, so I'd like to make it just a little over 2 minutes. Lisa Ferrara from the library, followed by Cleo Markman.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Ferrara. Some of you may recognize me from the Fort Hamilton Library. We have many interesting programs and events happening in the next few weeks. The first is our Career Club for resume and career help. So if you're switching careers, if you want to update your resume, please stop by and a librarian can assist you. It is on Monday, February 4th at 2:30. We also have English conversation classes on Mondays and Tuesdays from 4 to 5. If you're interested in becoming a U.S. citizen, please know that we can help. The Fort Hamilton Library offers free classes for the citizenship exam, Mondays at 10:30. And last but certainly not least, our Central Branch will be hosting its Night of Philosophy, and that's at our main library, 10 Grand Army Plaza. And it's an overnight event with over 60 speakers and performers. For more information, please visit www.bklynlibrary.org. And the Night of Philosophy is on February 2nd. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cleo Markman. I'm the Brooklyn Director for Congressman Rose. Just wanted to introduce myself, tell you guys some of our priorities going forward. On the legislative side of things, anti-corruption is what we've been tackling so far. He co-sponsored H.R. 1, and we'll see how that goes through the Senate and whatnot, hopefully. On the district side of things, we help with Postal Service, Social Security, different federal issues, but the congressman really prides on himself on helping with programs and problems that have arisen. Recently, he was able to help with the New York City Housing Authority case, and it's a city issue, but he's got a loud microphone, and if you know Max, he's got a loud voice, so he's not afraid to get involved, and like I said, no issue's too small, as he says. If it matters to you, it matters to him. I give my information to someone, so it's my cell phone number. Reach out to me anytime. It's literally my job. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Community Board 10, and we hope to be seeing you more. Jesse, I have to put my glasses on. Jackowitz? Okay. Please, I apologize for, okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jess Skafkowitz. I am a librarian at the McKinley Park branch of Brooklyn Public Library, so I'm just here to make a few more announcements about what's going on. In addition to the Night of Philosophy event coming up in February, we're having a business plan competition called Power Up. It's really cool if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to get financial and marketing skills, or if you want to connect with local business mentors. We've already helped over 8,300 people with over 1,000 businesses. So it's a really great opportunity if you're interested. We have orientations coming up. There's one at 10 Grand Army Plaza, our central library, on Friday, the 22nd of February from 6 to 7:30, and then we have a few coming up in the next few months. Also, if you have a kindergartner at home, you're welcome to bring them to the library. We have a special 6-session series where kids can, with their families, enjoy stories, activities. We have writing, talking, singing, you name it. It's a lot of fun. And I wanted to also let you know, if anyone lives in the McKinley Park branch area, which is 68th Street and Fort Hamilton Parkway, you're welcome to stop by the branch anytime. We have a calendar of events on that table, so feel free to take it if you're interested in learning more about what's going on at my branch. Okay? Thank you much. Thank you very much for your time.
Evan Weisberg? Oh.
Thank you. I'm Evan Weinberg. I'm State Senator Gennardis' Communications Director. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update, also introduce myself. Andrew's in Albany, but I've placed some flyers on the table over there. It gives you our contact information. We are still looking for a district office, but we are fully accessible. You can feel free to call us, email us. You will be hearing from a member of his staff. We also have Chinese, Arabic, Spanish, and Greek speakers that are full-time with the senator. So if you speak another language or you know somebody who does, we should have somebody who can translate. To give you guys an update for Andrew's work in Albany, he, as you may have heard, last week we have done a number of bills that have passed the legislature, and just today we passed the Child Victims Act. This will afford an increased statute and limitations to both criminal and civil cases, as well as provide more resources for support, and eliminates the notice of claims requirement for both public and private institutions, as well as a host of others. Lastly, we are launching our community engagement platform, which is 3 for Your Community. You may have heard it in Andrew's speech yesterday at his inauguration. And it's going to really incentivize the community as well as the district to do 3 things every week for your neighbors and around the community. It's a way to give back. It's a great opportunity to reach out and to learn more about your neighbors. But as always, I'll be around for a little bit after the meeting if you have any questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and welcome. Before I go on with the rest of the public session, there is a card going around for Alan Bortnick, who's not doing well. It's a get well card. Does anybody have it? Okay. If you haven't signed it, please see Joe and sign it before you leave. Thanks very much. And now, Sophia Quintanar? Okay, not too bad.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sophia Quintanar, and I'm the Communications Director for Assemblywoman Mathilde Frentis. So it's the beginning of our legislative session, and as Mr. Weinberg said, we have passed a lot of legislation in both houses. Today happened to be the day we passed the Child Victims Act, and one of the more important parts of that bill that I'd like to elaborate on is that there is a 1-year window for filing claims. So that means that if you have a claim that you would like to file under this statute, you have 1 year from the time the bill is signed into law to file that claim. That is a one-time deal, and you have 1 year to do it. The bill hasn't been signed yet, so the clock starts ticking when the bill gets signed. Just one little elaboration, because I think that's one thing that hasn't really been talked about that I feel is very important, because there's no age limit to that 1 year window, whereas for the rest of the bill, you have until you're, I think, 55 to file a claim. So just a small elaboration on that. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to our office. I have my email up there up front and my contact information. Mathilde Frentis has been assigned to the Aging, Children and Families, Mental Health, Tourism, Parks, Arts, and Sports Development, and the Transportation Committee. I know everyone's super interested in that one. So those are the topics that she will be focusing on, among other things, of course, but those are the committees that the Assemblywoman has been assigned to. More broadly, we have an event coming up on February 7th. It's in a partnership with Thrive. So it's a conversation about mental health. Also, sort of goes hand in hand with her being assigned to the Mental Health Committee. And this is something that she will do. She will be hosting these events throughout the district. So the first one will take place on February 7th at the Coney Island YMCA, YWCA, excuse me. And we plan on having the next event in Bay Ridge, and more details to follow on that. We'll see how the first one goes. Our Bay Ridge office should be opening up pretty soon. We're just waiting on changing that sign. So more details to follow on our office opening. It should be fairly soon. For my last update, I know that one of Assemblywoman Frentis's campaign promises was a think tank, and we are working really hard to bring that to fruition, and we anticipate that being towards the end of February. Got a lot of stuff going on with the legislative session, but we anticipate something actually materializing towards the end of the month of February. Anything else? I think that's it. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to seeing you all again.
Thank you very much. One of our committees has been concerned about mental health issues, so please contact us about that so we can work with you. Thank you very much. And next, we have Callie Sawyer, followed by Nick Chamberas.
Hi, everyone. Oh, I think I get a little less nervous every time I come up here. So one big thing that Ortiz has started doing this year is we're having a second Saturday open policy forum now, which is, as you might have guessed, every second Saturday of the month at our office from 1 to 4 p.m. And that will be happening again on February 9th. So come stop by. We'll talk legislation, we'll talk district issues, local and statewide things. So that's exciting. The second big thing that's happening is we have a resume workshop. That's happening on February 1st, so next Friday, this Friday? This Friday, I think. And there's, I forgot to bring flyers, but there's more info on our weekly reports, which I put out over there, and you can also find all the info about that online. We'll have it will be taught in English and Spanish, but we'll also have Chinese translators available. And that will be at Sunset Park Library, so it might be a bit of a trek for some of you, but you're all still more than welcome to come. Lastly, I just want to touch on the Assemblyman's legislation plans for this year. So he's really going to be focusing on environmental protections. He has a bill for divestment from fossil fuel, to ban plastic bags, and to put a moratorium on fracking. And then another big thing for him is education and mental health, especially mental health for kids. And I think last time it was mentioned, we have a bill that will put a social worker in every school, a full-time social worker. And there's another bill also that would put a full-time guidance counselor in each school. And another bill of his is to create a bullying hotline that's free and anonymous for all kids to use. So yeah, I think those are the big things. If you have more questions about the legislation, you can shoot us an email. You can come by our second Saturday on February 9th, or you can grab me after the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Nick, and then Ari Kagan.
Good evening, Community Board 10. Before I forget, Doris, I want to thank you for cracking the whip. I don't have scientific data, but regarding our Christmas toy drive, we collected way more toys than ever before, but it was the first year that everything was donated on time, and I don't think it was a coincidence. So thank you, Doris. Quickly, I want to mention we're going to make a very strong effort this year to finally get property tax reform passed for New York City. You know, the out-of-control property taxes in New York City disproportionately affect middle-class homeowners and middle-class and working-class renters. That's a fact. There's a house on Staten Island. It was in 2017. It was assessed at $559,000. The property taxes were $5,500. Property in Park Slope assessed at $1.6 million. The property taxes at $3,485, give or take. That's just not fair. Bay Ridge, Dyker Heights, Bensonhurst combined pay $137 million in property taxes. And again, we're bearing the burden of owners who own homes that have significantly more market value and have a lot more financial resources as a result. It's just not fair. So Nicole's proposals are making a formula simple, based on market value, no more convoluted, Byzantine, antiquated assessment formulas. Your property tax is based on your value. A market cap for seniors who are 65 and older, make less than $75,000 a year, and have been living at their residence for 20 years. It's common sense, and it's something we can do. 2% cap in an increase in the city. It's available almost everywhere statewide. Again, it's just common sense, but we're asking for your support. We have an online petition. Please go to www.nicolemaliatakis.com and sign our petition. Link it, share it with your friends. This is a nonpartisan issue. It helps owners and renters alike. It's about time we get passed. You know, it's time to put the pressure on the state and the city reform commission to get it done. And lastly, Nicole did join parents in opposition to the mayor's wanting to change the formula for the specialized high school admissions test. Assemblywoman Maliatakis definitely wants to see more children included. Her idea is focus on more programs at the elementary and middle school level to have access to gifted programs in preparation for the exam. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. I'm glad I was able to help with your your description of what you went through one year was harrowing. So glad to help one of Santa's elves. Thank you. Aaron.
Good evening. My name is Ari Kagan. I represent New York City Controller Scott Stringer. Happy New Year. As you probably know, Controller in the last several weeks introduced his affordable housing plan, which covers everybody, the very poor and the very wealthy. Everybody covered by this idea. And today, Daily News, basically editorial, endorsed his plan. We're talking about 580,000 New Yorkers who are not homeless, but whose income is like less than $47,000 a year or less. And they pay more than 50% of their monthly income for rent. As a result, everybody is talking about affordable housing. Everybody is talking about homeless population, which is about 63,000 people. But reality is how to find money for this affordable housing in New York City. This is the biggest question. So Controller's plan basically helping middle class, helping low-income people. It eliminates the mortgage recording tax. It's a second tax for home buyers who borrow instead of paying all cash. Just last year in Manhattan, more than 50% of new apartments bought were paid in cash because they knew about this mortgage recording tax and they didn't want to pay this mortgage recording tax. So the Controller's proposal is to eliminate mortgage recording tax and reform the real property transfer tax. We're not talking about property taxes of existing homes. We're talking only about real property transfer tax to be more progressive and fair. And he's talking only about properties that are more expensive than $2 million. As a result, it will be $400 million a year to city treasury, and all of this money should be spent to build affordable housing for everybody. Thank you very much.
Jessica Callow.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica. I work for the Borough President's Office. I just want to do a few quick reminders. The deadline's coming up, February 15th. Get in your community board applications if you are up for reappointment. We generally like to have everything in by January 30th, but I want to stress that the application deadline is February 15th. So if you have any questions or if you don't know if yours came in, I mean, Dorothy's been doing a great job keeping up with me. We do it, and I call downstairs and I find out right then and there whether or not something's been in, and if it's not, we fix the problem right then and there. So if you have any questions, please let me know, because I won't see you by the time it's up next month. I have my monthly messages in the back, and usually I don't talk about them, but we have some cool things in there this month. Free tax prep. The borough president's really big on plant-based diet. He really wants to make the city more healthy, more green. So we have I guess it's a plant-based vegan and veg-curious meetup that we do monthly and occasionally for families and stuff. So this one that's coming up, we're going to have guest speakers and fun games. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, please give it a look. They're really into that, so they make it a lot of fun. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and that's the end of the public session. Thank you all. Okay, good evening, everyone. Sleepy January has been a busy month. It's hard to know where to begin. I sent a casual text to some Bay Ridge friends asking how everyone was. It was the week that homeowners receive their annual real estate tax assessments. I don't know how my friends are, but I know they are angry about their real estate tax increases. Yet again. Real estate tax reform has been discussed, but where does it stand? People are thankful that Councilmember Brannan has offered assistance to homeowners with their real estate taxes, but this city faces great tax inequities. Brownstone, Brooklyn, and newly gentrifying areas across the city have market values far greater than Bay Ridge and Dyker Heights, but their real estate taxes are much, much lower. Councilmember Brannan, thank you for offering your assistance to homeowners, but please work with the council to address tax inequity. On a totally different topic, this month in the State of the City address, the mayor announced changes for ferry service. There will now be ferry service direct from Coney Island that will stop in Brooklyn and then go directly to Lower Manhattan. It reduces the time of the ferry commute from Bay Ridge to Lower Manhattan, but it severely reduces ferry connectivity with Brooklyn. Ferry service within Brooklyn reduces car traffic. Access to Dumbo and to parts of Queens should be a priority. This is not a luxury, it's a necessity, especially when Brooklyn is looking at a traffic nightmare that will be resulting from the pending reconstruction from the BQE Brooklyn Heights underpass. And as this change in ferry service does not include service from Brooklyn to Staten Island, ferry service access to Staten Island is not nostalgia for ferry service to Staten Island from before the bridge. It is an important interborough link. It is important for Staten Islanders as well as Brooklynites. It is also a practical, simple way to add bicycle connectivity to Staten Island. It is the city subsidizes this ferry service at a rate of over $6 per ride, so it should address the needs of Brooklyn. And back to normal BK10 business. Traffic safety was discussed at 2 meetings this month, at the Street Safety Subcommittee and at the Traffic and Transportation Bicycle Route meeting. It was also in our local newsletters. At both meetings, there was animated discussion of reckless driving and lack of enforcement for traffic laws. You will hear details in each report, but the common threads were the need for education and traffic enforcement. At the Street Safety Committee meeting, I was amazed by the number of descriptions of U-turns, a K-turn, a W-turn, an M-turn. Since the introduction of Vision Zero, traffic deaths have decreased drastically, but traffic accidents have increased. CB10 will be examining the traffic data in our community and looking for patterns. The 6A precinct, as I mentioned earlier, has noted the problems too, and we will be working with them on these issues. We hope to meet with them soon and that they will attend the next Street Safety Subcommittee. With crime down in the precinct, more resources should be available for street safety. We will work to ensure that traffic safety needs of our community are addressed. During the bicycle meeting, it was noted that as cycling has drastically increased and has been promoted by this city and other municipalities within the state, no changes have been made with the driver's license and driver's training to address the increase in cycling. And for all of you state representatives, that's where the regulations and the training on driver safety comes from. There was a definite sense that there should be some change in the driver's manual to address safety and awareness of cycling. While bicycling has increased, so has the use of e-bikes, pedestrian-assisted cycles, and motorized cycles. The legality and the usage of these vehicles must be clarified, and that must be followed up with enforcement. It is not legal to ride or drive them on sidewalk. It is a hazard for all, but especially for our seniors. Most of e-bikes and motorized cycles are used for food deliveries. I ask that our local business groups develop an education program for their members, which could result in greater safety for all. And as Jessica said, there's only a short time left for reappointment, so if you have not submitted your application, please do so. And as a note, this is a special anniversary for board member Larry Stelter. He advised us that he was appointed to the board 30 years ago this month. Thank you for your service, Mr. Stelter.
Was the district manager, and the late Arthur Schreck was the chair of the board.
Wow.
January 1989.
Wow.
Ken Koch was still mayor.
Thank you. And now we will have the. Oh.
Just one thing. I'm a driver, and I'm probably guilty of everything you spoke about.
Do you do Q-turns?
And I also complain about people who do that. But the one thing that nobody ever speaks about are pedestrians, where you're backing into a car space and they walk right behind you. Or they cross streets and they don't even turn their heads. I mean, they cross, they're glued to the phone, and you're talking about kids, people middle-aged, elderly people. The pedestrians also have to be more careful. And they just don't pay attention.
You're absolutely right, and that was discussed at the Street Safety Subcommittee and at the bicycle meeting. And there are, we'll be looking at educational programs for that and to be making people more aware. It's like
look before you cross.
It's like you're in your car and you just sitting there going, dummy. But, I mean, there is absurd pedestrian behavior, no question about it.
Thank you, Doris. Good evening, board members. I want to take this opportunity to first thank our city council member, Justin Brannan, who secured funding for our live streaming by WNET tonight, so I just want to say thank you. I also want to talk about several capital improvements that are taking place within Community Board 10. First is National Grid work. There's major upgrade work along 3rd Avenue, if you haven't noticed or bumped on a plate, from around 74th to 78th Street. And I would say during the month we got many, many complaints about this work. The district office has been working with our councilman on this, as well as reaching out to National Grid and DOT. So hopefully those complaints will be corrected very soon. Next is sewer reconstruction. There's a major reconstruction project taking place on 65th Street from 6th to 8th Avenue. The sewer replacement involves installing 250 feet of new sewer pipe. They estimate it will take approximately 1 month to complete because there are issues with utility interferences along with an oil tank that is within the way of the trench limits. So if you travel on 65th Street, note that there may be some delays there due to this construction. The 97th Street ramp replacement at Shore Road Park. The district office received a call today from New York City Borough Commissioner of the Parks Department, Marty Marr, to let us know that the ramp will be delayed. Opening will not take place until the end of June. 71st Street, if you've been that way, between Ridge Boulevard and Colonial Road, will have some upcoming upgrades by National Grid to their infrastructure. And 71st Street between 3rd and Ridge Boulevard, although it's near completion, there was also a sewer main replacement and National Grid work on that block. The Department of Transportation, we received notification that a new traffic light has been approved at the intersection of 86th Street at Battery Avenue. And many of you know here on the board that location had been requested many, many times and is finally going to be installed. And I think the community there has been requesting it, will be very happy. We also received a demolition notice for the upcoming full demolition for a property located at 8904 5th Avenue. This is across the street from Santander Bank. Permits have been issued by the New York City Department of Building. There were plans that were submitted for a 6-story and cellar retail and community facility educational space. As we receive more information, we'll share that with you. Con Edison smart meters are coming to CB10. We will be having a presentation by Con Edison at our February board meeting. So that's really big, and we should alert our neighbors, and that will be in our newsletter. So tonight, if you walked in and did not get approached by board member Joe Sokolowski, we do also have a request from the 3rd Avenue merchants. They are working on forming a business improvement district. They have a survey here. It's this green and white survey that's at the front. And they're really looking to garner local feedback to their survey questions. They have a mid-February deadline, and specifically ask board members and everyone who's here tonight if you could please fill one out before you leave. The Bay Ridge Center, The NORC, the Federation of Italian American Organizations, and Bay Ridge Age Friendly Project will be hosting a special movie event called The Age of Love, which is a film documentary that follows 30 seniors. It's going to take place on Valentine's Day on February 14th from 11 to 2 a.m. To 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's not an all-nighter. At Il Centro at 8711 18th Avenue. So if you would like further information, it's going to be posted on our website. And if you have any seniors that would like to see that, please share the word. New York City Department of Homeless Services tonight will conduct its annual Hope Count from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Volunteers will be canvassing parks, subways, and other public spaces to survey the number of people living unsheltered in the city. If you'd like to join them tonight, you could hop over to PS 102. I'm sure they'll accommodate you with the location. Kingsborough Community College also asked me to share that they have a program for seniors 60 years and older called My Turn. The spring semester is fastly approaching us. The information for this will be available on our website. Registration will take place on Thursday, February 21st. And our next CB10 meeting will take place on Monday, February 25th, 7 p.m. at the Norwegian Christian Home. Thank you. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you. And now the treasurer's report.
Good evening, everybody. Community Board 10's Treasurer's Report as of December 31st, 2018. Total personal services, $112,130.26. Total other than personal services, $12,906.29, leaving an unencumbered budget balance of $158,874.45. Thank you.
And now moving on to our committee reports. Our first report is the Police and Public Safety Committee report by Lori Willis. Sit down. Always an interesting report.
Hi. The Police and Public Safety Committee met on January 8th, 2019. There was only one item on the agenda, but I apologize. This is a long report, notwithstanding. So the one item is a new SLA liquor, wine, beer, cider application from Ming Hao Inc. at 848 64th Street. There's no 500-foot hearing on this, and the committee did meet in quorum. This is an application for a full liquor license. So this is the former location of Crown KTV, which some of you may remember, and it is also the location of a fairly recent murder. This location has a long and quite adverse history, so the committee had a lengthy discussion on the application, which ended in its unanimous vote to recommend denial of the application to the State Liquor Authority, including a detailed report as to the reasons behind the recommendation. It has to be stated that the committee has a good knowledge of the premises, its location, and its floor plan due to the numerous times that it has reviewed matters regarding this location. Members have seen floor plans, photos, and very early on in the premises history, they had actually conducted a viewing of the premises itself. They went there and toured the interior. And one board member works at PS 69, and the rear yard of PS 69 is diagonally across the street from the premises, although the school itself is not within the 200-foot zone. Premises are located on a street with buildings that have primarily commercial, warehouse, and factory uses. The interior of the premises has an entryway and open bar with a very large circular bar in the middle and tables and bathrooms and a relatively small kitchen and office, with the balance of this very large premises being comprised of a number of individual rooms which were built out originally and outfitted as karaoke rooms. And the premises has a CO that permits 187 people. The lengthy adverse history was reviewed with the applicant at the committee meeting, and in order to provide a full understanding of the committee's recommendation, and also so that some of our newer board members who may not remember some of the history here we'll have a full context review the history. I'll try to go through it as quickly as possible because it is long. This location has been plagued with adverse history since the premises were first converted from a factory warehouse use to an eating and drinking establishment in 2009. In October 2009, the premises were first licensed by the SLA to sell alcohol to Crown KTV with various stipulations that were arrived at through the community board. Less than 1 year later, on April 17, 2010, the NYPD executed a multi-agency response to community hotspots operation. They called it a March operation at the premises, following which SLA violations were issued for the open use of cocaine at the premises for patron dancing in violation of the stipulations. On September 11, 2010, the SLA issued a violation for disorderly premises in connection with a fight that left a bouncer with a broken leg. On February 16, 2011, the SLA issued violations for sale of alcohol to minors, sale of alcohol to intoxicated persons, and failure to conform with the applicable fire, building, health and safety and other governmental requirements. On April 30th, 2011, the SLA issued violations for disorderly premises by reason of sale of controlled substances, failure to post warning signs, failure to conform with applicable fire, building, health and safety requirements. On August 7, 2011, there were 5 stabbings in front of the premises. On August 11, 2011, the SLA issued violations for disorderly premises by reasons of altercations and or assaults at the premises, failure to exercise adequate supervision in sustaining and continuing a pattern of noise disturbance, misconduct, and disorder adversely affecting the health, welfare, safety, and safety of the inhabitants of the area. September 24, 2011, the NYPD issued 4 violations for disorderly premises for allowing drug activity and numerous summonses for service to underage persons. The Fire Department and Department of Buildings also issued a violation, and the SLA then issued 2 violations. Thereafter, the SLA began proceedings to revoke the license. And those proceedings eventually, after a time, because these proceedings do take time, resulted in 12 of the 15 violations alleged being sustained and a civil penalty imposed of $30,000. As the revocation proceedings were still pending in March of 2013, the 68th Precinct reported there had been 50 calls to 911 and 8 arrests at the premises, some of which were drug-related and 2 included felonies. In that same month, there was another NYPD March operation, which resulted in 5 summonses being issued. Then, in January of 2014, the licensee sought to renew its license. At that time, the community board had received calls from residents complaining of rowdy crowds, underage service, and report of people seen leaving the premises at 7 and 8 a.m. on weekdays. Community Board 10, after debate, voted to renew the license with lengthy stipulations, and thereafter, each month, new SLA violations were issued. And by the end of April 2014, 6 SLA violations had been issued for possession of controlled substances on the premises and 2 SLA violations for failure to comply with the applicable legal requirements. And by the end of May 2014, there were 5 arrests at the premises, only within the calendar year of 2014, and the license was finally revoked. The liquor license was finally revoked by the SLA in June 2014. Shortly thereafter, in September 2014, Go One Sushi Inc. was formed, according to the Department of State Records. From January 2015, some of my committee members will remember this, to April 2015, Go One Sushi served 3 30-day notices of intent to file a liquor license application on the board. And so in connection with the first one, they didn't provide any written submission, and then they didn't appear. So then they filed another 30-day notice. And that notice, they appeared and failed to give us sufficient information about crucial details about how the premises would be run. And on the third application, the applicant again failed to provide sufficient information, and when the matter finally, they went ahead still with their application to the SLA, and the SLA denied that last application. And in addition, one of the things I would like to note is that during that whole process with Go One Sushi, the ownership was unclear. It was somewhat confusing as exactly who owned this entity. In any event, 8 months later, on May 23rd, Ming Hao Inc. was formed. with their address listed in Department of State records at the premises. It applied for a liquor license, and the matter was put onto the September 2016 committee agenda. The applicant appeared, and at that time, it was stated that the owner was Mr. June Lin, and he appeared at the committee meeting represented by his attorneys, Patricia Lynch Associates. The applicant stated intention for the method of operation was a restaurant, but they didn't intend to perform any alterations. Their hours of operation, their very limited menu that they presented, their late hours of operation, and et cetera, it appeared to the committee that the actual method of operation, despite stating that was a restaurant, was really that it would be operating as a bar or lounge. And the committee also had concerns over the Mr. Lin, the owner's complete lack of experience with licensed establishments, and also the very limited staffing plan that the applicant had presented. And so the committee advised against, and the board then voted to deny the application. Thereafter, on April 1st in 2018, there was a murder at the premises. There's one other fact. According to the Department of State records, Ming Hao Inc. as an entity was dissolved on August 8th, 2018, so not long after the murder. The next month, the CB10 received a 30-day notice that Ming Hao Inc., this dissolved entity, would like to file for a liquor license application. And that's the application now before us. The application first appeared on the October 2018 agenda, and the 30-day notice that we received stated that its intended method of operation was for a restaurant, lounge, and karaoke club. Although the applicant had, through its attorney, requested an adjournment of the matter, Captain Conwell from the 68th Precinct, who you all just saw, came to the committee meeting to report that on April 1st, 2018, Easter Sunday, there was a homicide at the premises, a fatal stabbing of Mr. Wei Lin, a 41-year-old man. Captain Conwell reported that at the time of the incident, the premises was operating under the name Go On Sushi. That was the name that was appearing on the exterior of the premises on the actual sign. And from the outside, the establishment appeared to be closed, but on the inside, when officers went in, it appeared to be a fully operational karaoke establishment with no liquor license. Captain Conwell reported that there were at least 10 individuals inside the premises at the time of the incident. No one called 911 or reported the incident to the police, but rather the victim was dropped off at Maimonides Hospital about 4:45 a.m. Maimonides then notified the police of the events, and by the time they arrived at the establishment, the premises had been bleached to remove any evidence. In a subsequent update from the 68th Precinct, we were also informed that the individuals who were inside have been uncooperative in the investigation, and that the investigation is still ongoing. After Captain Conwell's report, the matter was then on our agenda. It was adjourned twice, once because the owner was out of the country. The application then went ahead on our January 8th meeting, and the applicant appeared by its owner, Ms. Yi Mei Chen, and her attorney, Terrence Flynn, and his associate, Michael Nussbaum. The applicant represented that the method of operation would be a restaurant only, and that the method of operation stated on the 30-day notice that was given to the board was only on there, which included lounge and karaoke, was wrong, and it was due to the attorney's office error. The applicant's completed questionnaire that it did submit to the board, to the committee, had no method of operation indicated on it. They just didn't fill out that portion of it. The applicant states that the premises will have 170 seats with 17 tables, and the hours of operation will be 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. 7 days a week. The applicant submitted a proposed floor plan of the premises, but it was unclear from the plan and the applicant's statements exactly what the floor plan or what alterations would be done or have been done to the layout of the premises. The applicant represented that some of the existing karaoke rooms would remain with the addition of doors that have large panes of glass in the top half of the door, allowing clear visibility into the room, and that those rooms would remain with the existing televisions and music, but would have no microphone for the actual singing of karaoke, and that they would only be used for dining. But the plans that were actually given to us were inconsistent with those statements, because those plans showed that these walls were removed. And when we asked the applicant, has all this construction been done, she said yes. So no one could tell whether or not the walls were actually there, whether these karaoke rooms still existed or not. Also, when we showed the applicant pictures of the premises that had been given to us from the 2016 application, the one that had Mr. Lin listed as the owner, and this hallway, one of the photos was the hallway of the karaoke establishment with the doors to the individual rooms there. And another one was a photo of the large bar area. It has a big circular bar inside. We showed the applicant the pictures, and she said none of that had changed, that all of that was still there. The applicant did not submit any current photos with the application, so again, it was very difficult for us to try to ascertain exactly what the floor plan and the layout of the premises would be. And also on the application, the portion where we asked what type of music, if there will be music, on the questionnaire rather, that also was not filled out, that was left blank. Further, the applicant was not able to explain why Mr. Lin was listed as the owner on the prior application. The applicant submitted that she was the sole owner of Ming Hao Inc., and that she couldn't state also with any specificity when she became the sole owner of Ming Hao Inc., and her statements about it were inconsistent. With regard to the April 1st, 2018 murder, Ms. Chen said that she was the owner at the time of the murder, and that Mr. Lin was the manager of the premises at the time, and at that point he had been the manager for about 3 months. She stated that she was out of the country at the time of the murder and therefore didn't have any facts about it except what was relayed to her. And she stated that she does not and has not had and does not currently have the premises open for business. The committee did note that there had been 3 calls to 311 on January 6, 2018 for loud music at the premises. And Detective Harry Kirshner of the 68th Precinct, who was in attendance at the meeting that night, stated that the police department was not in favor of the issuance of this license at this location in light of the prior adverse history, the ongoing investigation into the murder, and the rest of the facts as were reported by the 68th Precinct, which I relayed. The committee noted the serious adverse history of this location, the adverse history of the premises under the current applicant who does not yet have a liquor license, consisting of the 311 calls for loud music, the murder, the reported operation of the premises without a license, and the owner's apparent failure to supervise the premises, the lack of clarity and transparency by the applicant regarding the very existence of the applicant entity, the actual ownership of the entity, the method of operation. The committee was also concerned about the owner's complete lack of experience in running an establishment like this, and also concerned about what the floor plan and the layout of the premises would be. The committee voted unanimously to deny this application with a very detailed letter to the State Liquor Authority regarding the basis for the committee's recommendation and requesting that the State Liquor Authority hold a full board hearing on this application. So this is not a 500-foot rule situation, and that is the reason why we are putting in so much detail and that into our recommendation, or suggesting that the board vote to do so, and also that requesting that the State Liquor Authority hold a full board hearing, because that wouldn't be something matter of course when you don't have a 500-foot rule. So that is the motion on the floor, finally. My very long report, I'm sorry. Any questions? So we met in quorum, so it's on the floor. Any questions or comments? Brian Kieran.
I have a statement, a question, and a request. The statement is, it's a wonderful report, very detailed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh,
thanks.
Committee over the years, because this has come
Well,
up
you know.
again and again and again. And the question is, wouldn't the landlord be subject to some sort of padlocking, since this long history of murder, stabbings, drug dealing, going on for years? Obviously, he's not troubled by it and doesn't keep these tenants out. The city could padlock the place, could it not?
Well, I think you would be speaking about something along the lines of a nuisance abatement. And normally when you have that kind of situation, you have to have, and it's not, specific, it's almost specifically legally required. I mean, the case law pretty much, you have to have 3 incidents of the exact same type of problem going on. And so, no, I know that, but in more recent history, it hasn't occurred, right? So, I mean, there was a lot of violent history. Now, you know, in more recent history, we only have 1 murder. So, I mean, it's funny, but it's not. You know, and so I don't know that necessarily if that type of action were brought, it would be successful. But the other thing is that it has to be brought by the city, and so we'd kind of have to get court counsel involved in this.
would have to do it, so I would
I
ask
think
that
it's
this
corporation
letter.
counsel, it's not civil.
I'm not sure what the enforcement person would be, or prosecutorial authority.
Yeah.
If it's the city law department, or if it's the DA, if they get a copy of this report as well. But the question, can any action be taken against the landlord or against the premises itself? And my other request is, whenever this goes before the SLA, let me know. I'll go. If I can go, I'll go. It always helps to have someone there because, you know.
I think it's more effective when there's a member of the board in attendance
Sure.
at the board.
Right, and I think it's that important and it's that difficult of a situation. It's been such a hazard and such a blight on the community for so long that it's worth it. So if I can make it, I'd be happy to make it. I'm sure someone else would volunteer to go, as long as we know.
Well, we do have some reports in the file from you when you were chair about this, and actually recommendations against licensing to the SLA that I had the occasion to read in preparation. Anybody else? Nothing. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Doris.
I have 2 comments. One is, I mean, I think actually we could wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you could do this. So.
Not that I want to, but I probably could.
But I don't know the SLA, but it's a very, very long report. And I have a concern that they're going to get bored and not, and not get to the current stuff. Could we organize the letter so that the current information is front, is in the beginning of the letter, and then follow up?
Well,
and I would, that's just a suggestion.
Yes. No. I drafted, I understand, you have to know your audience. But I drafted, actually, this report with an eye toward, because the recommendation is not that we give, I mean, they get a copy of this, but truthfully, what they're going to read really is our sort of summary.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of drafted this report thinking of my friend Josephine, who would probably go through this and bullet point it. When she writes up our, you know,
Yes.
And then I figured if this were attached, if they had any questions, they can, you know, take a look at it. But I was not expecting them to read this. No, I was only boring all of you with it. I'm sorry. Abusing my power.
When it's on their docket, if someone's there, they sign up, they cannot vote on it without that person being allowed to at least speak towards it. And you can certainly put the bullet points up there and let them know that the community is really behind the report and there's a face to go with the written words.
Yes, that was discussed at the committee that we would try to get board members to go down. It's obviously not part of a motion because we can't force people to do it, but it's encouraged. Anyone else? Okay, so all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? Okay, and then there's just one more item, which was new business. The committee discussed that with the recent announcement that marijuana will soon be legal in New York, that the committee might want to look into the potential various effects on the community and possibly the types of legislation that will be put into effect and how that legislation will be enforced. So basically the committee will be looking into ways to answer questions that may come up regarding that and raise potential issues that the community may encounter relating to the legalization of marijuana and whatever else, high-inducing cannabis-derived substances and how that might affect our community. And that was it. No other business. The meeting was adjourned. Thank you.
Again, thank you. And it's amazing. And this is more than 6 years. It's amazing. Thank you. And now we'll have the Zoning and Land Use Committee presented by Ann Flutico.
Thank you, Doris.
The Zoning and Land Use Committee met in quorum on January 3rd, and Steve Harrison acted as chair in the absence of Zoning and Land Use Committee Chair Brian Kazuba, who was excused for a very good reason due to the arrival of his son Jack that day, I believe. So the first item at that meeting on January 3rd was kind of a revisit of the BSA special permit renewal application for 439 86th Street. That's the building which houses the New York Sports Club on the second floor. This application would extend the term of the previously granted special permit, allowing the continued operation of the physical culture establishment operated by the New York Sports Club. Presentation was made by attorney Fred Becker. There had been no complaints or adverse history reported to CB10 with respect to this building or its tenant, the New York Sports Club. However, at the meeting back in November, when we first looked at this topic, a neighbor on 85th Street came to the meeting. His property abuts, his rear yard abuts the rear yard of the sports club. Anyway, he expressed that there was significant noise disturbance to his property from the HVAC units on the roof of the 86th Street facing building. And this negatively affects his life as well as the quality of life of his nearby neighbors. The sports club at the second floor and the other tenants of the building all have their HVAC units located on that same roof. So it's difficult to say exactly whose unit it is when you hear a noise being emitted from that roof. But nonetheless, the application was adjourned until the noise testing could be obtained. The district office contacted DEP and an inspector was dispatched, but unfortunately, in that it's the winter, the air conditioning couldn't be run long enough to really ascertain what the noise situation was. However, on the other hand, this matter does need to be resolved at the BSNA in February. So a kind of compromise was reached, and that is that the board, the committee recommends that the board move forward with the approval of this renewal with a stipulation. And the stipulation would be that the New York Sports Club will mitigate noise from the air conditioning units if it is determined by New York City Department of Environmental Protection that their unit exceeds allowable decibel level. So in light of the above, we would like to have a motion to approve the application with the stipulation, as I just said, that the New York Sports Club mitigate noise from the air conditioning unit if it is determined by New York City DEP that their unit exceeds allowable decibel level. So I guess that motion is on the floor from the committee. Brian, second. Any discussion, questions, anything? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Recusals, abstentions? Okay. All right. Moving on from there, our second topic is with respect to a property on 65th Street and 8th Avenue. This topic is going to read kind of like many other topics where we have BSNA cases and other similar things. This, however, I want you just to realize that this is slightly different because what this applicant is requesting is a rezoning of the entire block. So just to keep that in mind. The rezoning presentation was made by Frank St. Jacques, Esquire of Ackerman Law Firm. The developer of the property is Lee Milt Petroleum, and they are the current owner and potential developer of the site. There is no application on file. This applicant decided to come to the committee prior to even filing a rezoning application, just to kind of test the waters and hear what we had to say early on, which we appreciated. The proposed development is on the northwest corner of 65th Street, directly north of and across 65th Street from the Dust Bowl. The site is currently occupied by low-rise auto repair and a convenience store. The property The property in question, which is the block, the whole block would be rezoned. The property in question is 8,000 square feet. The entire block is 17,000 square feet. So, however, as I said, the lot is within the area to be rezoned. The area includes the entire block on the west side of 8th Avenue between 64th and 65th. So that includes the properties that may undergo development ideally, but also properties that the developer does not own. The proposal is to change the zoning map in the designated area from M11 manufacturing zone to a C4-5D, which is a commercial zone, and for a zoning text amendment to designate the rezoning area as mandatory inclusionary housing area. So we're going to call that what it's usually called, MIH. It's a mandatory inclusionary housing area. So if this change were to take place, the zoning change, it would enable the development of an 8-story commercial and residential mixed-use building with about 12,000 square feet of commercial floor area on the first 2 floors and 32,000 square feet of residential units on the upper floors, for a total of 48 residential units, 8 of which would be income-restricted MIH units. There would be 27 accessory parking spaces, 48 apartments, 27 accessory parking spaces, 14 for residents, and 14 for residents, 13 for commercial units. The ZALIC committee listened intently and asked many questions. So we'll talk about the questions that we asked. We asked who Lee Milt Petroleum is, and we were advised that it is an affiliate of Getty Realty Corp., which is part of the Getty conglomerate. Mr. St. Jack stated that the property has been operated as a full-service gas station for many years, and gas sales have diminished, I guess, and it is now a repair station only. Lee Milt owns many gas stations in the area. Their intention is to develop and maintain this asset. But nothing, of course, would prevent Getty from selling the property after the rezoning, which would certainly increase the value of the property. The current low-rise commercial zone has an FAR of 1. So an FAR is the multiplier by which you determine the size of a property. So right now it's an FAR of 1, which means you take the number 1 and multiply it times the floor, the area of the lot, and that's the maximum floor area permitted. Lot area times floor area ratio equals allowable development. Okay, so currently it's an FAR of 1 and does not permit residential. Therefore, what can be built as of right is somewhat limited, although a community facility could also be built under the current M1. With the change, the FAR with the MIH is 5. That's 5 times the size of what can be built there now. We asked about what would the allowable FAR of the building, what would the allowable FAR of the building be without the MIH component, and Mr. Jacques responded that the city would not even allow a zoning change of this type without the MIH component. We asked what would happen if Lee Milt, the developer, flipped the site after acquiring the zoning change without building. Mr. Jacques stated that with the changes, any developer would be free to build all commercial as of right. However, if Lee Milt does not build a mixed-use building, then future purchasers of the site will be required to keep the same mix of commercial, standard residential, and MIH components of use. However, should any owner decide to demolish the building, that owner could build all commercial. The committee is concerned that the property will be flipped after the zoning change and new owners could build something with a substantially different use, even if not a substantially different building envelope. The issue, of course, is that the site is worth substantially more if the zoning change is granted. That could prompt Lee Mill to flip the site without building anything and still make a good profit. And that's effectively what happened in the case of the Home Depot and the large development that has been before us here, which will take place on 62nd and 8th. This concern is particularly keen in the current situation, and perhaps one could say likely, because Lee Milt has no experience in development or construction. The committee asked next why no environmental testing was done in view of the fact that this site was a gas station. Mr. Jacques advised that, of course, this would have to be done before the project goes forward, and that all appropriate environmental issues would have to be investigated, and if necessary, all remedial measures would be taken before any permits would be issued. The committee also raised the question of traffic congestion in that very crowded area and asked the developer to keep the issue in mind. And Mr. Jacques was a really great listener and responded and said that they would. Finally, the committee advised that the developer that this building and new zoning area will fall within the school zone for PS 69, one of our most overcrowded school districts. The residential component will only exacerbate that overcrowding condition. The developer was asked to bear this in mind when developing their plan. One final point, this zoning change, not a variance or a special permit. A variance or special permit is a zoning relief mechanism contained within the zoning resolution itself. Those mechanisms are specifically limited to lots or lots owned by the same applicant seeking zoning relief. In sharp contrast, this developer is asking for an actual change in the law to accommodate his plan. By supporting the change of the zoning map and the zoning text, we would not only be granting this developer the right to larger development on the single lot he owns, we would also be creating a number of soft sites with uncertain futures on the other tax lots within that block. Okay, so the committee notes that Mr. Jacques and his team made an excellent presentation, was responsive to questions, eager to work with us, and to repeat that the matter was brought to us before it was filed, which seemed very respectful to the planning board. The committee will continue to discuss this, and we will, I'm sure, hear more from the developer. So there is no motion here. This is an informational report. But since it is kind of a large topic, would anybody have any questions or anything to add to the committee's discussion?
I also had a question because right opposite that spot is another area that had also been an operating gas station and repair shop.
Yes.
That had been closed probably about a year ago, or maybe a little bit more, and that has been boarded up, and there was some kind of signage about potential building there.
Yes, you're right, Jane. My understanding is that site is also going to be developed, but within the context of what the zoning law allows. We don't have any final permits yet on that particular site, but I mentioned at the meeting that there were 3 gas stations at that intersection. Now we're down to 1.
Correct.
And as we look at the change of a manufacturing use to a use other than manufacturing, that certainly, because gasoline stations as of right can be zoned in the M1 district, so that concern was raised. But there's definitely going to be a new development across the street, and I would imagine that given it was a gasoline station, there's extensive environmental review that goes along with it. We've had other locations within the district that attempted on much smaller lots that were not able to build because of the remediation costs involved. One particularly across the street from PS 127 on 79th and 7th. So I'll keep the board posted as we get information on that. But that issue was raised at the meeting.
And the buzz, the unofficial buzz, is that residential was
planned for that spot.
Yeah, that-
Although nothing's actually come of it.
Nothing's actually, yes.
I know there was another, it's out of our community board, it's into the next, but by PS 160, there had been a lot, that had been a gas station that is now part of the school annex, and that took many years before that did occur, but they were able to do that, just as a point of reference.
Thank you.
And I'm also looking at it on MapQuest here. And there's a slow transition. You'll see the 4th Avenue corridor as well. Every
Yes.
gas station is kind of being taken down. So I don't know where people are going to get gas in the future. We'll have to go to Jersey. But that's besides the problem. What I see is 1 and 2 floor structures here. Let's start imagining 10, 15 years down the road. We will slowly not have space to survive in this area by this overdevelopment. There are no schools, there are no parking, we want bike lanes as well. There are no bike lanes if we have all this congestion. There is just gonna be a standstill. And I'm really starting to fear just imagine 65th Street having eight floors just along the whole thing. So once we set that one precedence, if you guys visualize and drive by and feel the living conditions as they exist now, it'll kind of, rude awakening of what's happening here, slowly. And I'm starting to be concerned as to the overdevelopment and where people are going to get medical services, the policing that's taxed, the schools are taxed. We're not built for this.
Absolutely, especially when you have proposals like this, that are coming piecemeal until you've just like lost control
Correct.
of the whole strip there.
And now it's the beginning of this, and we still want to wish we have a say, but at some point, we're not going to have a say. It's just going to happen as of right.
Right, but on the other hand, the manufacturing, the FAR of 1 and the manufacturing strip there really, perhaps one could say, loses viability presently, but we need, I guess, a better plan for what happens next.
Hotels, correct me if I'm wrong, right?
I believe yes, right? Yes.
So as of right, the M1 allows hotels now.
It's subject to individual site reviews, but yes.
And there's also, besides that area that you were referring to on 62nd Street that you mentioned.
Yes.
By 62nd and 8th Avenue to 62nd and 7th Avenue, besides that large development that's multi-story with a hotel, with residential, with commercial, there's also the area on 9th Avenue between 62nd and 60th,
The overbuild.
The overbuild.
Yeah, we did mention that at the meeting.
Yeah.
There's currently still an RFP for the overbuild, which is the train track area directly across the street from 6200 8th Avenue, that the MTA is seeking to develop.
Yes.
At my last job, I worked on Broadway and 61st Street. Right across the street was this massive, almost city-side space with a fence around it. And I was amazed. I'm like thinking to myself, Broadway, how could they have this parcel of land just sitting there year after year? And then I found out that the developers came in, they bought the land, but the EPA was putting the brakes on it constantly. Because 61st and Broadway, that area used to be where all the car dealerships were, and across the street had been a big gas station. And so when this developer bought the land, the EPA kept saying, you want to build there? Your foundation has to go, you have to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And it almost bankrupted them because they didn't expect to have to go so many feet down to clear out this land, to put the foundation in, to build a building. The developer almost went broke. But the building is One Central Park West, which became one of the most expensive residential buildings in the city. And what was amazing was to watch this battle, this everyday battle of the developer just wanting to do something, and the EPA saying, no, we got to make sure that there's no toxins and clean everything out. And so for this person coming in, I don't know what their finances are. They could, like you said, they can go into this project and then find out it's going to be more expensive and then flip it. And once you start that process of like rezoning, who's to say the next people are gonna come in and it could
Yes.
just snowball? And which could put us in a really serious position. So I think knowing what, they need to know what the project may cost already and come back to you with those costs. Because when the EPA got involved, I was there 15 years, and it wasn't until, I think, my last year of work there that project finally got done.
I think the sentiment at the committee was one of concern, and fueled by what I'm hearing and feeling from all of us tonight, maybe the committee, and I'll pose this to Brian as a suggestion, ought to take a more global look at 65th Street and come up with some suggested comments that could even start a dialogue with city planning.
Well, two things. Number one, I just want to speak to what Nick said, and also to your mention of, the fact that you can't rezone, and the city won't allow you to rezone without mandatory, housing.
Yes.
And I understand that. I understand that there's a very laudable goal there, but at times I feel it's short-sighted when you're looking at a situation like this where it's already a very crowded area, one of the most crowded school districts, and we just don't have the infrastructure and the support that we need there to support these big projects within a relatively small, already crowded area that are coming up. I understand, the need for development. Speaking to what you were saying, they're not going to investigate and do all the soil testing before they go ahead and do this, because if they do their phase 1 environmental, it's going to say, yes, it was used at a gas station, but we're just looking. Once you get into your phase 2 and you do boring and you actually ascertain that there is contamination there, you get put on like a list, and they're not going to do that because it's going to create financial problems for them in their development plan. So, to ask them to do that, they probably won't. But did they say that they would consider maybe just asking for a change for their own property and not for the whole block?
No, that was not the approach of their application, no.
No. And did they say specifically the reason why they wanted the whole block, including properties that they don't own?
They mentioned that city planning really doesn't do spot zoning. So you can't just zone one zoning lot, one tax lot. That's why they look at the whole
So
property.
do the other owners get to weigh in? What if they don't want to be rezoned in that
We
way?
did mention that.
Do
They
they?
said we would need a follow-up meeting. They did say they reached out, but we'd like to get a bit of a sense. And certainly in the report, it was mentioned there are other tax lots there, so they will create other soft sites. And there's a very large building at the corner, which is currently a business-type cooperative. So we asked the question, could the use of that building then change? And the answer technically is yes, although they argue that it would be very difficult to change its use, but it could happen.
But seemingly, the other owners on that block may well be in favor, given that it's going to permit bigger buildings for everyone. I just want to say one thing as a clarification. It's not that residential is required. It's that if you have residential, there's the percentage required of mandatory inclusionary housing.
So if you just say
You could do just commercial or just community facility, yeah.
But you can build the FARs the same, you can still.
No, there
build
would be a
the
little,
platform.
there would be a little difference downward from there, unless, I think, increased amounts of community facility would probably keep that FAR really high, but it isn't that residential is required, and that's a good point, that it is the residential in many ways that is sensitive to all the congestion on 65th Street. Yes, Ruth?
I think it's very important for us to fight hard to keep our current zoning. We've looked at other areas, as was mentioned just before, the 4th Avenue corridor, and we see what happens when zoning changes, when buildings just get built. And I don't really view developers as friends of our community. I view developers as having the pig factor for making money, okay? And they don't have the community in mind. I mean, they might throw a few affordable apartments or a few parking spots,
I agree, we have to be vigilant, that's for sure.
I think we have to be very vigilant.
I agree with what everyone's saying about overdevelopment, but I think unfortunately, the writing's on the wall all, and it's happening all around us. I think the city is going to go forward with a lot of what revenue comes to them. So I think we have to start thinking ahead because it happened along 4th Avenue. I believe it's going to happen along Sunset Park, along 3rd Avenue. I think that's a whole city development. That whole area has been in the works now for years. So, you know, I know we all like our little community, and I agree, the infrastructure can't handle it. But I think we have to start thinking ahead of time and forming committees to speak with the city planning to find out how we're going to go forward in our community, because every community is overcrowded, and they seem to do it anyway.
Right, our approach has to be more than clinging to no change, that's for sure. Yes, Nick?
No, back in the days, our 4th Avenue, those buildings were built for working families, right? They were not luxurious, they were nice square brick buildings with minimal necessities for families to live in. These new buildings, although they might have low-income housing, and there's ways of kind of hiding that within, most new buildings are the cost is so much that they're building luxury condos, they're building luxury apartments, and that's, I mean, it looks great for us, but it's not going to be for the low-income or the middle-class working family anymore.
Yeah.
I think one of the things you have to look at, and you alluded to it, is that each development is looked at individually. And that is how city planning works. And I recently read an article, I think it was by the Municipal Art Society, that how that is failing us. And I think that we need to, and I will actually reach out to them and say, is there any way how we can approach this, how we can see an area?
Yes.
And instead of individual lots.
Agreed.
So I think that's a very, very important thing for us to consider, because we do have our special district, which does do a lot of protective zoning, but if you don't look at the broader picture, it creates a big problem. And I think that's our big concern right now.
Yes, instead of putting out fires, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Lastly, and this kind of segues right from this discussion, is that we have a new intern that is serving our community board from the new school. His name is Jack Story. Is he here tonight? Okay. So he studies urban planning, and he is going to take on special project of studying the soft sites overall in Community Board 10, identifying them, and kind of trying to help us get ahead of being reactionary kind of approach, which we do all we can not to do. So that's it. On behalf of Steve Harrison and Brian Kasuba, I thank you.
Thank you very much. It was an interesting discussion. And now we have traffic and transportation. Thank you.
Good evening. The membership of the Traffic and Transportation Committee met on Wednesday, January 16th at 7 p.m. in the Shore Hill Community Room. We met with Department of Traffic Liaison Leroy Branch and representatives from the New York City Department of Transportation for a workshop with members of the public to gather community input on expanding and improving the bicycle network in Bay Ridge and Dyker Heights. Our goal is to focus on safety for all members of our community and all modes of transportation. DOT reviewed with us that when there are several. The first is a conventional bike lane with designated painted lines to separate the bikes and cars, providing a visually narrow roadway. The second is a protected bike lane that provides a physical barrier between the cyclists and traffic. Usually this is with parked cars between the bike lane and traffic, or potentially a concrete barrier or bollards. The third type is a shared lane, or what is referred to as sharrows, where there is a painted picture of a cyclist and arrows to just alert the drivers of the cyclist, but there is no specific bike lane. The main reason for our meeting was to discuss the creation of routes connecting our neighborhood with bike lanes from north to south and from east to west. Previously, Community Board 10 has supported bike lanes in 2003 along Shore Road and Colonial Road. In 2015, our board supported an increase in bike lanes on 72nd Street, 68th Street, Fort Hamilton Parkway, 6th Avenue, and Marine Avenue. In 2018, DOT presented proposals to district managers and also gave a presentation to our board with a proposal for a bike lane on 92nd Street that the community did not support. At this meeting, there were about 75 people present, and we gathered at tables with a DOT representative facilitating. At our tables, we discussed where we live, how we travel, where we would identify area destinations, and where we believed bike lanes would be helpful. At about 8:30, we began sharing out what each table came up with. With so many people, many different ideas came out. Some believed there was no need for bike expansion. Other tables discussed ideas for bike lanes along other streets, including 68th Street, 83rd Street, and 7th Avenue, and several tables mentioned Fort Hamilton Parkway, 75th Street, 86th Street, and also 4th Avenue as potential locations for connecting routes. Many mentioned that improvements were needed in enforcement, signage, and education on bicycle rules of the road, including the rise in electric bikes in our neighborhood. Enforcement was mentioned on many levels, including speeding, cell phone usage, double parked and illegally parked vehicles. Many also voiced support for our beautiful Shore Road Greenway and the need to connect routes there and keep that roadway maintained. Ultimately, it was a productive and respectful meeting. I'd like to thank our Traffic and Transportation member, Nick Nicolopoulos, for suggesting this meeting and proposal last June when we had met with DOT, and our district manager, Josephine Beckman, and DOT liaison, Leroy Branch, for helping to make this happen. We await a report from DOT and continue to make safety a priority issue for the Traffic and Transportation Committee. Thank you.
What was interesting is that DOT showed up and said, okay, we'll have 4 tables and like 8 people at each table, and I think there were 10 or 11 people at each and 6 or 7 tables. They were overwhelmed by the support, and I thank the board for their outreach on that. And now we will move on to our Street Safety Subcommittee.
Good evening, everyone. On Monday, January 7th, the Street Safety Subcommittee met in quorum to discuss issues of pedestrian and vehicular safety in Community Board 10. The committee members intended to provide a roadmap to interpret information and brainstorm for solutions to dangerous intersections and streets in our community. District Manager Beckman provided information about prior requests for action concerning street signage, traffic control, or traffic calming measures that have been submitted to the New York City Department of Transportation, the agency primarily responsive to our community's requests for improved safety on streets and at intersections. She also distributed NYPD information about moving violation statistics in the 6-8 precinct, which was very informative. Chair Doris Cruz attended to give support and provide a historical context to street safety issues in the district. The committee decided to focus on specific locations in the district that would benefit from improved street safety planning. We discussed speed cushions, speed cameras, enhanced signage, various possible improvements to make dangerous streets safer. We also agreed that in addition to signage and traffic control improvements, the general issue of street safety required enforcement of vehicle and traffic laws, as well as education for drivers and pedestrians. And I think that's something we all can agree on even if we might disagree as to what modality to adopt, there seems to be an increased incivility on the roads between drivers and pedestrians, between pedestrians and drivers, between drivers and drivers. So to that end, the committee voted to propose 4 recommendations tonight to the board. We met in quorum, so this would be like our motion to you. That the Education Committee and the district office seek out partner schools in the district who would sponsor a campaign for driver and pedestrian safety. It would be a contest where students create posters and slogans that address unsafe practices like speeding, U-turns, texting and driving, texting and walking. The interaction and activity would direct attention to things that are making everyone in our community unsafe. In addition, school assemblies should be conducted in those schools and elsewhere so that safety specialists from the New York City Department of Transportation could address and inform participants about driving and cycling and walking safety issues. Those resources already exist. We just want to direct them specifically to places and start building partnerships. I had a chance to talk to Captain Canwell tonight, and he also has NYPD personnel going to schools that I wasn't aware of, so we're going to try and tie this all together so that it's coordinated and more effective. So that first part of our proposal is education in nature. Second was to place a street light for improved traffic control at the T intersection at 90th Street and 3rd Avenue. The light would be coordinated with the light signal on 89th Street and 3rd Avenue. Presently, traffic on 90th Street crossing over the avenue must make a left turn and negotiate traffic traveling in both directions, as well as pedestrians who are only aided by a stop sign at that site. So, and we had a discussion prior to identifying specific areas. We're not done with identifying specific areas. We don't want to overwhelm in having a request for everything at once. So this was our first situation to be addressed. Second situation to be addressed, or place to be addressed, was to place louvers on the street light at 4th Avenue and 101st Street. So when that light is green, drivers would have to be closer to it to see that it is green. This shading is intended to discourage drivers from overlooking the lights before reaching that intersection. There's a tendency for drivers to see the distant green light and speed up while ignoring other traffic lights leading to that intersection. For example, when drivers see the distant green light, they're encouraged to increase their speed and sometimes pass through other traffic lights that are red due to the distraction. So the louvers would not block the light, they would just make it difficult to see from a great distance. You'd be able to see it when you need to see it, when you're at the intersection and before, but not 3 intersections away. The third area to address was to request a safety study from the New York City Department of Transportation of the corridor of 10th Avenue from 76th Street to 86th Street, with the intention that this thoroughfare would be made safer with stop signs and traffic lights at appropriate intersections. I'll come back to the recommendations. The subcommittee also voted to have at least 1 and at most 3 streets or intersections or conditions identified by the subcommittee at every meeting. We intend to develop strategies to request law enforcement agencies to address unsafe driving practices that have increased in the community. These include, but are not limited to, speeding, drag racing, and illegal turns. The subcommittee recommended that whatever vote is taken tonight, if it is to approve the requests or the motion, that those requests be transmitted to the City Council, City Hall, New York City Department of Transportation, and the NYPD, along with a letter of support from all of our elected officials. So going back, we met in quorum. So that motion is before you to adopt an education committee, district office / street safety committee cooperation to begin an education program with targeted schools, to place the street light for improved traffic control at 90th and 3rd, to place louvers on the street light at 4th Avenue and 101st Street, and also to request that safety study on 10th Avenue. So it's a 4-part motion. Any questions? Yeah.
Doesn't the louver make it harder to see the red light?
It would from a distance. It's all about the distance viewing. So the dangerous condition is caused when people see the green light. They get encouraged, unwittingly, to speed up and ignore what's right before them, like 2 or 3 lights ahead. When you get closer, you'd see the red, the green, whatever, unimpeded. It would be whatever would be approved for use by the DOT. So it should be safe.
I'm on the committee, but I missed
Yeah.
the meeting.
Right,
so
right.
I'm sorry.
That's
But,
okay.
Did you speak about the numbers on the lights when they're ready to turn from?
The countdowns?
The countdowns. There's a lot of lights that don't have them in the neighborhood, and
Right.
that would be helpful. Did you speak about that?
We did. We talked in general safety, but we also tried to pick certain places. So if there is an intersection that would benefit from that doesn't have it already, it would probably be added to our next meeting. We're going to address those things. But we didn't want to address or try to address everything to the...
I think to the credit of the chair of the subcommittee, it's like, there are so many issues. Let's narrow it down and see, and then once we identify some, then we can move on to others.
But the education is one very large issue that hasn't been addressed as well as it could be. So
And
it's
the
a-
models are out there. The DOT has,
Yes. The
models
resources
out
are there.
They just have, we have to follow them.
And NYPD actually goes out for school assemblies. And I don't know if you caught it, but it's not just school assemblies. It could be adult assemblies as well. If we can incorporate it into presentations to Short Hills or other places where it's appropriate, then those pedestrians and other drivers would also benefit.
Quick clarification on the leeward light. Was it at 101st Street or was it at Shore Road and 4th Avenue? Because what was happening is that people are going through the red light at 101st Street because they see the green light at the Bell Park Light.
They're going through it at 99.
Yeah,
well,
I think it was meant to include at Shore Road, so.
We'll make them look at it, and then it can be discussed further.
Right.
And just for other things.
And they may fight us and not do what we request, but we'd like them to look at it at least, or give us, a viable alternative improvement.
And I was at the meeting, and they discussed these louvers, and I said, I had no idea what they were. So I was glad you clarified that. Now
Yeah.
I understand how they work. And when you talk about the 4th Avenue corridor there, it would definitely have a serious positive impact.
I'm pretty sure that it would. They will do a study before they do any sort of signage or change to the traffic control measures. So I'm sure whatever we ask for, we're going to get a response and some information before, even if we recommend it. But we know that things can be done. We know that things should be done to improve street safety. So we want to get the ball rolling. Yes.
I just want to say thank you, because 2 years ago, I had a niece who was just crossing the street and a speeding truck killed her instantly. I think we just go about our days and and sometimes we don't even think about certain things. And I joined the senior center and I've seen people literally go to the corner and just start walking across the street. I'll see teenagers with earphones do exactly the same thing. I'll see cars coming in all directions. But everybody has to be reminded of the dangers with this. And there's enough commercials that I would see about, when you're riding your bike or when you're crossing the street with both ways. Like you said, they already have a lot of that, and that's stuff that can be brought back. But the one thing that can't be brought back is somebody who's been killed or really injured. And that's the thing where I appreciate these kind of things, because the pain that a family goes through is horrific. But if it can start saving lives, or just get people to slow down and look both ways, or when they're driving, pay a little more attention, or when they're riding their bike, not to have earphones on. I see things every day that it's scary, because when I used to work at the Daily News, and I would see these things, when I would have to cover these stories, it was a heartbreak for me, and it would stay with me for a long time. Because the one thing I would always say is, this was preventable. This should not have happened. And the more we can save lives or injury, personal injury, I applaud it.
Well, you can see Vision Zero is effective, but it's not perfectly effective, so it needs some nuancing. There's increased public safety announcements that have come out lately, which are great. We're going to try and do our own local version of that with this, education and outreach. Nick?
I was just going to ask you about how this tags along with Vision Zero. So that's great, because it's a two-way street also. It's pedestrian, Vision Zero, and drivers. But also, I said with the bike lanes meeting that we had, driver's exams are antiquated. So, I mean, we should, at the state level, the city should really have a different driver's test. You need different skills. They're 30 years old, if not more.
We had a representative. It was noted that the driver's manual has not been updated to include bicycles.
And we had a representative from Andrew Bernardo's office there who was really there to give us the state take on these things, what the state can do in terms of perhaps speed cameras at certain places that would also move around, so it's not like a punishment on the neighborhood. But if you know that there's drag racing, like on 86th Street, that was a big complaint, and unless you live right there, you're not affected by it, unless you're up at 3 in the morning and you happen to be walking by that. But if it's really happening, a speed camera could be something to ameliorate that until people say, oh, I'm going to be getting tickets, I'm going to be recorded, and then it could be placed somewhere else. With that cooperation, we're going to have a lot more opportunities to use novel solutions.
Okay, and then we have
Yeah.
motions on the floor.
One question, and then we'll take the motion.
Just a reminder not to forget about the bumps. As annoying as they are, I think the bumps in some ways are even more effective.
We talked about that.
Than the termination at the corner. They get you in the middle of the block, they get you to go slower, nobody wants their teeth rattled.
They make something called speed cushions that we don't have. And we're going to explore options that previously we've been told, oh, you can't even think about it. I think a page is turned, and we'll have our questions and our requests at least listened to. And one of them would be speed cushions, which would be a lot better for sound and for neighbors, but also effective at reducing speed. So anyway, our motion tonight is for the education component, the street light at 90th, the street light at 4th Avenue, 101st/Shore, and to request a safety study on 10th from 76 to 86. All in favor? Any opposed? Recusals? Abstentions? That passes. Thank you very much. And thanks to the committee.
Thank you all. And now, any old business? New business? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you all. Thank you all.